Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another of my interviews on 2023 Spilling the Astro Tea. Now, I have a bit of exciting news today because this is like a bonus episode. So you would have already gone through maybe and listened to all the astrology, but this year I'm giving you one of my favorite Eastern astrologers who just shares the most magical things about the year ahead. And I've been listening and following Renee for quite some years now, and definitely tuning into those because I love how they all connect and that everything's connected. It blows me away. So you're all in for a treat as I welcome beautiful Renee Longworth. Hello, darling.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I am so excited. I mean, me and you realistically have been trying to get together to do a little thing for a couple of years, let's be honest.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
And it just hasn't aligned. And then we were like, we are locking you in for the panel this year. And here we are. And I'm bloody pumped.
Excellent.
So pumped.
Yeah, thank you.
So introduce yourself a little bit, Renee. I want everyone to know a little bit about you and what got you into this Chinese astrology, and even just the way you do it. You don't simply go, it's the year of the rabbit, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so much in-depth information that you give. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm a fully qualified feng shui consultant. And with any feng shui, like good feng shui, it's always married with astrology because we're working with heaven luck, earth luck, and woman luck. Ooh. So earth luck is obviously the feng shui aspect of it. But we've also got two other lucks that actually influence us and our circumstances. So we bring that and marry all those lucks together to give a really good holistic view of what's occurring in someone's life, why things are occurring for them, and how we can improve on that. So Bazi, or Chinese astrology, and this particular Chinese astrology that I work with is called the Four Pillars of Destiny, which is traditionally called Bazi. So it's quite in depth. It's very much the similar information you can get through with Western astrology. So it's not the fluffy sort of yearly forecast that
it's not just like
out.
And like just sun sign astrology, just like, you know, we actually in Chinese astrology, which is, you know, 20 years ago, because I love all astrology, I of course know that I'm born in the month of the snake and the year of the monkey, but I haven't gone still, you know, all of the different pillars, and you've actually had a little bit of a look, and I know I've got a lot of water, and it's just so interesting that, again, just like astrology, it's more than just you're a Taurus or a Libra. It's actually not just you know, your moon sign and everything that's sort of playing out and how that plays out. And that's what I really love about listening to your forecasts, because they're always so amazing, Renee. So I'm excited. And I love the heaven, woman, and earth luck. Like, how beautiful is that?
Yeah, and it's really important to distinguish how things can actually influence us and how we're influenced. So obviously we have our spaces with feng shui, and there's certain aspects of that we can actually work with and change. So we can change the place that we live. We can change our climate by moving to a different country, but we can't generally change the pollution in the air or landforms like a mountain. We can't change that really on an individual level. And then we have our woman luck that we can change at whim, because it's all our free will and it's our charity and morals and ethics. But with heaven luck, which is our astrology, it's what we're born into. We can't change it, but it gives us that information, like a guiding force that we can tap into. So we have some tools in our tool belt to be able to know maybe what's coming up for us, how best we can navigate what's coming into our life.
Absolutely. And I think that anyone who's been following me for a million years, you're mirroring exactly what I say, because I talk about astrology being like a secret, not so secret superpower, because we have all of these tools there, like this wisdom, this cosmic wisdom, the heaven luck, you know, like I didn't know it was called that. And it's just, and it is heaven luck. And it is for us to, just like our own astrology chart and our own Eastern chart that we would look at, you know, that you know about more than we do. that's going to give us and it really is a pillar and an anchor into who we are and what's going on for us. And the forecast stuff for me is always my favorite, because I'm all around arm yourself with awareness, understand what's coming up, because yes, there might be a lightning storm, or yes, it could be this and this, but you're prepared then. And yet, you've still got to flow and you're still going to get the knocks, but there's a level of acceptance and allowing, as opposed to resistance and, this is happening to me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, actually, no, it's not happening to you. It's happening, it's a part of this cycle. It's a part of the unfolding. Yeah, the cosmic play. Exactly. So I'm so excited then to dive straight in, because we have a huge year, and as most people would know, I have my 2023 kit, and I have a very 2-page, again, it's much more general, and that's why I wanted Renee to come on, because get your notepads ready. I know that anytime I listen to Renee, I take about 3 or 4 pages or 5 pages of notes, because again, I'm looking at the astrology and marrying everything up to like, this is amazing. So I am excited about a rabbit year, purely from a an umbrella sort of thing, because that's where, as deep as it goes for me, when I share, I just sort of share how we can weave all this energy in. And something that I've sort of said is that in 2023, we've got some of the biggest transits that we've ever seen in our lives happen. So, the rabbit for me feels like a softening of the edge of that, because the rabbit is a very gentle, we're coming from a tiger, but the rabbit, feels more submissive to, like, there's something there that's hopefully going to soften the harsh edges of what's to come, because that's sort of how I'm seeing it. So I really want to open the floor up to Renee and to allow you to share your magic, darling. So thank you.
And perfectly correct. Like, it is a softening. We aren't drenched in fear like we have been in the last few years, and it's a yin pillar, so it's a softening. It's the more the female version of the wood element. So I don't know whether you're aware that a lot of people do a reading on the characters of Chinese astrology, but really we're looking at the elements. So we use the Chinese 5 elements of fire, earth, metal, water, and wood to see what the cycles are doing and how they interact with one another, and how we can gain what the characteristics are from the 5 Chinese elements. So the rabbit is actually yin wood. And wood, if you understand what wood does, it grows, and it's all about growth. But because it's yin, it's a lot more flexible. So our tiger of this year, 2022, it's strong, it's yang, it's like this rigid, strong tree ready to just take on the world. Whereas we go back down to the grass, we go to the seed in the yin years of wood. And so it's a lot more flexible, but also a lot more resilient, because you can imagine when you're stepping on grass, it has this enormous pressure put onto it, but it has the ability to bounce back really quickly. And that's one of the characteristics of the rabbit year.
Wow. I just am like, I'm sure everyone's with me just writing that shit down. Like, that is, and I love that, because like you said, we're not just, because I'm such a totem animal sort of person as well. So I go and like research, like, what's a rabbit do? Like, not just from the Chinese perspective, but the actual rabbit, the actual tiger, like the actual rooster. Like, we need to look to the elements. We need to look to the animals. Absolutely. They are gifting us the wisdom. And so, yes, whilst I was absolutely going, where I know that we're in a water rabbit year, I didn't know that the rabbit was the wood. So of course, I'm not going to, and this is why, and that is so amazing, just the words that you've got, the growth, flexible, the seed, the resilience, which is all things we are absolutely going to need in 2023. So I am already like loving you. I love you. You're just awesome.
Excellent. And it's this sense of youthfulness. So there's a lot of focus on the new, a lot of focus on change and new beginnings, because of the youth of the yin wood. Yin wood is the branches that are growing, the seed that's just pushing through the earth, and it's that impulse energy. So it moves up, and it's strong growth. It's all about ideas as well, and innovation, inventions, and that's change, invention of yourself as well. And it's following your goals, your aspirations, and it's ideally to become the full person that you are.
That's so aligned too with Pluto for the first time in our lives, moving into highly innovative Aquarius, the genius, you know, the recreation of the self. And whilst it's only a teaser, and of course, there's going to be lots more about that. Some of my interviews have been about Pluto and Aquarius, which have been amazing as well. And I'll be sharing lots more. There's stuff in my kit. But, you know, I love that the rabbit is also holding that, because as much as there is this softening around her presence, which I, again, like I said, really feels like it's necessary, the fact that this innovation's coming in, this newness, again, it does feel like a, you know, a beginning of sorts, and a new seeding. And I love that, you know, that wood isn't in Western astrology. We only have four elements. That's right. So just earth, air, fire, and water. So it's really interesting bringing that wood in. It really adds this really beautiful dynamic, because you guys have metal too. So we don't have metal either. So what is it that we're...
Metal's like air.
Metal's
it's
air.
Similar,
okay, cool.
Yeah, it matches with air that I can gather.
I was wondering that. Yeah, okay, great. So it's the wood that's the missing. I mean,
it's the extra.
Yes, and I love that pillar. I think that to go into that next year is going to feel, again, different, because it's wood. We're working with this wood element as opposed to just water or metal, or you know what we're used to, fire and earth. Yeah.
And 2022 is a water wood year as well. So the tiger is wood, but it's yang wood. It's much more fierce. It's very fierce. You know, that's the beginning of the war in the Ukraine. It just speaks of tiger and that aggression. And we've still got aggression with the rabbit. There's still frustrations, but with rabbit, it doesn't like confrontation. So it will retreat. And it doesn't mean that it won't fight for its cause. It will just do it more silently. But there's also a sense with the gua, which is the water, the yin water sitting on top. There's a sense of feeling like you can actually get swept up in other people's opinions, and not actually following your true self. It can flip back and forth. It's very flippant in a way. It can be very flippant. It wants freedom. It wants to expand and grow, but there's a lot of shiny objects. So there's no earth element in our configuration in the 4 pillars.
For 2023, there's no earth. Okay, great to know.
So it's one of the tips, one of the biggest tips, is actually grounding yourself and coming back to yourself, because it's not only new beginnings, but there's major endings this 2023. We're actually ending is the last year of a 20-year cycle. So we're coming out of the age of 8 and going into the age of 9. So this is feng shui cycles that we're looking at. And the age 8 is the mountain. The trigram of the mountain, and that's like stability, earth-based community, also earth-based resources as well. So mining is massive in that 20-year cycle, and we're actually moving from the age 8 into the age 9, which is the fire element, and the fire element is spiritual and energetic. So that's where we go into the digital age. Which is we're already seeing it now, right? like the metaverse and, you know, digital identities and cashless societies, or, you know, like,
and it just blows me away that this is the ending of this 20-year cycle that you speak of, that, you know, unless you're doing what Renee's doing, I mean, we don't know, you know, and that's hence the reason I love you. But I just am blown away, because this whole digital stuff is, you know, whilst everyone wants to go, oh, we're moving into the age of Aquarius, I mean, that's a very, again, very long cycle. That takes a long time.
okay.
But what we are looking at is, you know, we've had the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in Libra, which means that for the next 200 and something years, every 20 years, they will only meet in air signs. So we are actually moving into this age of air, right? Which fuels fire. Let's look at your fire element 9. So air and fire in Western, you know, they move together. They're yang. They're both yang, and they're both masculine, and they hold one another. You know, without the air, fire can't really do much. You know, it
That's
needs
right.
air, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, with Pluto, you know, ingressing into Aquarius for the first time in 248 years. Again, we've got this innovative air. Aquarius is technology, you know, metaverse. Friggin' people are going to be marrying aliens, and, you know, like, it's just making babies out of friggin' in petri dishes and shit like that. I mean, shit's going to get weird. Let's just be honest.
Yep.
Shit is going to get weird.
And we can't stop it.
Absolutely not.
Ooh, no.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And so the age of 9 is in the next 20-year cycle, and absolutely, that's this fire element with all. And
also, you know, age 9 in itself is a transition year, because it's the end of the 180-year cycle. So there's lots of different endings and beginnings, and, you know, it feels like 2023 is that squeeze, that end of squeeze for us, until we tip over to 2024. And I have to say, with Chinese astrology, our years are a little bit different. So our new years are on the 4th of February.
Yes.
So that's when the changeover of the energy. And also that's why a lot of people can't stick to their New Year's resolutions, because we've still got that whole January to squeeze out the last year. And then, if you probably notice, a lot of your things don't stick until February. So it's better to do any sort of New Year resolutions after February the 4th, because they might actually stick around a little bit.
Yeah, and I, you know, or just ditch resolutions and just,
yeah,
you know, just don't bother trying to do that.
The flow. Yeah,
absolutely, follow the flow. But yes, absolutely, I've always resonated more with the Chinese New Year, because it's also based around the moon cycle, which, you know, again, we're sort of coming to the end, and there is this level of completion and then beginning again, because the new moon on January the 22nd, so I've got my dates as in January the 22nd, but I also know when I read that is like, not, it's classified as the start of the Chinese New Year, but I always know that there's those couple of weeks after where things change as well. So, you know, do you want to explain a little bit about that?
So the Chinese New Year that you have, the date of the 22nd, did you say?
January the 22nd.
Yeah, that is the moon cycle. So that's your moon cycle. The 4 pillars of destiny, what we're talking about, is the solar astrology.
Solar astrology. Oh, I love this.
So, and it occurred, like, our changeover of energies actually occur on the 4th of February every year.
Every year? Awesome. That's a really great.
4th or
5th. Okay, yeah, because
it bounces around.
And interesting, you know, people may have, I see that too. I always see like the New Year's the 4th or the 5th, but I've never been explained that it's the solar, like that's the solar part of that. Because for us, of course, Western, the 4th or 5th of February isn't the beginning of Aquarius season. It's not, you know, it's not, but that's why the moon cycle for me is where, yes, January 1 is, for me, the beginning of a new numerological year. So we move into the 7 year in 2023, but always that moon cycle for me really begins my year. And then, of course, there's the astrological new year, which comes at the end of March, which is the beginning of the turn of the wheel of the zodiac. So actually, you know, March is Pisces, it's death, it's the end, it's the womb, it's the full letting go. And then we begin again at equinox, which is Aries. That's where the fire starts again, where the baby, where it's fresh and it's new. So there's actually, you know, you've actually got a few things there to do at the beginning of the year that can give you and set you up.
Yeah, because we actually start on February the 4th, but that's a tiger, so that's wood element. So that's the spring, that's the momentum, the push to go forward, to go up towards your goals.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
what wood element is. And being a yang, being tiger, you've got that force that.
And that is because February is the month of the tiger.
Yes. Every year. Yeah.
Every year. That's, yeah. You knowing your month is really great as well. I think knowing your month that you're born in is really great. So that's excellent. So we've got that January the 22nd, which is the lunar new year. That starts the year of the rabbit,
and that's
but it's
actually spring
actually
festival. That's a cultural spring festival in Chinese culture. So it sort of doesn't work its way into the 4 pillars of destiny.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what you're teaching is definitely deeper and richer for sure. Yeah.
And if you read all the articles that come online, and they'll tell you if you were born in the year of the rat and things like that, that can give you a little bit of information, but we're not looking at a full chart. Like, as you know, being an astrologer, the year that you were born only gives you a snippet of information. And it doesn't, where's the month, where's the day, where's the hour that you were born. And so you need to actually look at the 4 pillars in your chart, because that will give you a better understanding of how it's going to actually influence you more directly. But the information that we're talking about today is very general. It's on a global scale as well.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, we need to plug into the collective and to weave the rabbit energy in and understand about that element of the wood, and understand that there's no earth, understand that we're finishing a 20-year cycle. So that 2023, like you said, will be sort of like the eye of the needle. And numerologically, a 7-year is like what's called the Mack truck year, it is a huge year of transformation and change. And when you were talking before about the rabbit retreating, and, because she has that energy of submission, but she will do what she needs to do silently. I mean, all peppered throughout my kit, I've just written, everyone just needs to shut the fuck up. Like, just shush, because it's a year of silence. Like, shh, stop. You don't need to continually be like blurting and the white noise and all that stuff. You're not actually transforming. You're contaminating to the collective consciousness instead of contributing. And for me, next year it's very Plutonian, and we're talking shadow walking, and again retreating and silencing. How can you sit in the silence of your own soul? Like, people don't want to do it because they're like, oh, I need to take a photo, I need to upload it, I need you to see it, I need you to see it. And so it's going to be a very interesting year, knowing that it's, that finishing of that 20-year cycle as well. But that's also the natural inclination of the rabbit is to actually retreat, and to see how that's going to play out for people as well.
And the rabbit doesn't like to talk. It's not there to voice it and speak up. It doesn't do that. That's part of the element as well. So it's matching exactly what you're saying. And there's also with Gua. So Gua is the yin water that sits on top of the rabbit. So I wish I should have put a graphic up of what it actually looks like, so I can show you.
But you will be holding your yearly one, which everyone can go and check out. And Renee does do full slideshows. They're awesome. I'm screenshotting, I'm drawing. Yes, jump on. I just didn't do any sort of visual or stuff in this one. But absolutely jump on when Renee does it. You might need to sign up to her email list so that you get that, because I'm signed up and I always get amazing things from Renee. She doesn't bombard you, and they're worth reading. She will share about what the month is about based on, again, the pillars and the animal and the element, not just like, oh, it's the month of the snake, blah, blah. Like, it's deep, and everyone knows I love the depth. So yes, go on about, finish what you were saying. Sorry.
So the yin water actually sits on top of the rabbit. So it's really what's in our faces. It's what's up, what we see as a result of the theme of this rabbit year. And there's some deceit and deception, and there's secrecy that's happening and occurring around us. So when I say you may be influenced by people, it's, you need to be careful of what you're being fed. So when you're saying you're on this social media and people are just talking and infiltrating the sound waves of our world, is everyone has to shut up. It's because we're not actually listening to ourselves. We're being totally influenced about what's going on around us. And so one of the, I guess, warnings of 2023 is to actually just be quiet and listen to yourself, because you're going to be influenced by perception that is incorrect. There's the water is like a mist. So because it's yin water, it's not a full ocean, or it's not a river. That's the year of the tiger this year. That's Ren water sitting on the tiger. But next year, it's like a mist, and that mist can blur our vision. And the wood rabbit is all about clarity and vision. But with the water involved, we can become blurred. We can become deceived by others. So yeah, it's one of the main things is to always go back to yourself. And that's part of the mountain trigram of the age of 8. So like I said before, we're being squeezed right to the very end until we transition into age 9. And that mountain is all about self-governance and your inner wisdom and following yourself, basically. And everything else can start to drop off. So with the wood element of the rabbit, it talks about decluttering and detoxifying and decision-making. So decision-making is all about coming back to yourself and what is it that you really want to do? What is it, or who do you really want to become? So you need to ensure that you've got those wipers on your glasses to clear that blurriness.
This is just so magic, so aligned. And I think, I'm often talking about, like the work that I've been doing for 20 years, everything for me is like self. It's like, listen to yourself. I'm a very strong Lilith chart. So, I mean, I don't even like if a doctor says something and it doesn't align with me, I'm like, no, thanks. Like, good for you. You do all the science. I listen to myself before I listen to anyone. And, that can be a hindrance or it can be, not. But for me, I'm like, if I'm not attuned to what you just talked about with the mountain, the self-governance, the following of the self. So that is very much like if you have been really doing, I know everyone says the work, but the work is the work. Like it's genuinely following yourself.
Stop.
It doesn't, no. But I mean, it's so actually amazing to hear that, the support of the mountain has actually been there for us the last 20 years, like without even really knowing. I mean, obviously I've watched your things for the last few years, so I've got those notes down, but really hearing you talk about it now is really landing deeply within me. And I'm, constantly sharing with, clients or talking on my podcast about it. It's just do you, boo, like no one outside of you has the answers. And if you're constantly looking for scraps of fulfillment and tell me who to be and tell me what my path is and tell me this, tell me that, like you're missing the point. And we've got all of the tools within us, and astrology, the astrology that you do, these things are here for us. And I think that it's so interesting that this yin water is misty and will blur visions, because I think this is where you do have to turn inward, and that's what the year 7 is. 7 is spiritual discernment. So interesting that again, we've got these correlated, these beautiful connected energies, because the 7 is retreat. The 7 is go inside you. Stop seeking outside of yourself. And that really, because you will be deceived. So many times I'm like, all the glitters ain't gold, my friend. Like just because someone's got all these followers or all this stuff that you think, I'm telling you right now, there is a lot of, it's a whole lot of shit most of the time. So the thing is that, and I think because of what we're all in at the moment, the collective, like it just seems like, oh, that's the status and that's where people want to be. And I mean, myself, a few years ago, I had to come to terms with going, oh, you've got all of this online, but I know you in real life and it's the complete opposite. And so it was quite weird for me, and only because what you see is what you get with me. Like, you know, I don't buy my followers. I'm not claiming to, you know, I don't need to do all of those things, but it's just this weird concept that I was like, because I show up as who I am all the time authentically, like I don't know how to be anyone other than who I am. And that might put me in hot water sometimes. People might not like it, whatever, but I'm not here to be palatable and just to make you feel better all the time. Like, this is just who I am. Like, I can't be that. So I can be very myself, trusting. And so when I meet someone or see someone, I'm like, oh, that's just must be the truth. And then I'm like, oh, that's not the truth. That's interesting. So I really feel like this will be quite an interesting energy to navigate for people who, you know, who aren't used to going inside and switching off and not just being told by mainstream anything, how to live, how to be, what's really going on. You know, I think that it might be a little bit challenging, maybe. I'm assuming as well, the rabbit year could be quite challenging.
Yeah, and depending on your chart. So every chart is going to be different, and wood for some people is the challenge, you know. It depends on what your elements, what your favorable and unfavorable elements are, that you can say, well, wood might be your favorable element. So because the water actually feeds into the wood is going to be the strongest element for this year. So even though we've got Gwai sitting on top, it is there, but it's not as strong as that wood theme that we're talking about.
And so what about this year, just as a comparison, because you did say that tiger is the yang wood. So it's obviously we've got that different feel, yin versus yang, but it's also the water tiger as well, like the water rabbit. So we've got the water. So would you say that the wood has actually also been the strongest in 2022, or the water?
The wood.
The wood,
so,
okay.
Yeah, if you look at the way the elements feed into each other, the water always nourishes wood.
The wood, okay.
Yeah, so because water is there and it's like a mighty ocean, you have this quite a lot of aggression for 2022, people wanting to fight wars, you know, either in drama within your own family or on social media or in media or politically. You will see that fierce fighting. But it's also a travel star, 2022. So a lot of people, like, the world is opening up again. People are traveling. So for 2023, like I said before, the yin water, there's less fear. So we're actually starting to open ourselves up for party. And the rabbit is considered a peach blossom, and a peach blossom is a romance star. So it's beautiful for marriages, but there's also sex scandals. There's a lot of, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Everyone's going to go out partying, and which is, you know, letting their hair down after such intense time for a lot of people. So it's a bit of a party year as well.
I'm sure everyone's sort of a little bit excited to hear that, Renee, let's be honest.
You just got to be a little bit careful, because there are a lot of sex scandals and things like that can come up, and we might see that in politics and celebrities and things like that come up.
I'm sure we will. I'm keeping my eyes out. And so you and just to clarify too, with the yang water, you were saying it is like the ocean. It is aggressive, but we move to the yin water, which is the mist, which is it's not like the big heavy ocean. So we're actually going to feel that sense of translucency, transparency as well, you know, like things, it's very ethereal. It's feeling, I'm, you know, as you talk about it, I'm feeling that very etheric sort of connection, really fine tuning your own frequency. And I think I have, again, like not even knowing some of this stuff, but just channeling my kit, you know, talked about, you know, really cleaning up your own energetic system and pulling it in a little bit, and not sort of having all these sort of, you know, holes in your auric fields and things like that, because the energy seems like so super sensitive. And with Uranus still in the sign of Taurus, I mean, we're still moving in this very visceral place, because Uranus is the great awakener and he changes things. And again, he's, you know, he can bring chaos and disruption. But in Taurus, it's very felt, it's very in the body. Again, money, you know, food sources. Yes, we could, you know, talk a lot about those things, but I'm just talking about this very visceral, sort of intuitive, etheric, you know, it feels like a real heightening of awareness as well.
Yeah, if you think about like mist and droplets of water, when those droplets of water land on something, they act like magnifying glass. So we're able to look down into detail of what's actually occurring as well. And any sort of water, it's the most yin of all the elements, like of all the elements.
Yes.
And because it's yin water, so it's yin yin.
Yes.
So it's the most depth aspects of our psychological self that we can highlight. It also is part of kidney chi, which is all about ancestry and understanding where we come from and how we are presenting ourselves from this ancient generations, and how all those pieces of puzzles can come together to form who we are today.
I love that. I love the water magnifying, and that does really feel like that's everything will be magnified. A 7-year is called the Mack truck year because people can feel like they've been hit by a Mack truck. Like it is the what it's all about here, because we're coming up to the end of the 9-year cycle in numerology. So we're getting to the pointy end of the stick. The 8-year is the abundance, the reaping of the seeds that you've sown. The 9 is the clearing out. Then we go back to a 1. So the 7's like this time of the things that you were saying. Who are you? Who do you want to become? All the things that you're talking about with the wood rabbit. Be clear, declutter, you know, make decisions. You know, a lot of people, you know, put a lot of very mixed signals out to the universe about who they are and what they want, you know, and sometimes you can get what you want and then you're a bit like, meh, you know, I thought I wanted that, but meh, you know, like that's even why in the tiger year, I was like, come back to family, come back to what's important. Like this is a time, like think of the great tiger. She protects and, you know, she prioritizes and she is laser sharp with her vision. You know, you watch a tiger strike, she's not distracted by all the noise. So if you got distracted this year, I'm assuming next year again, shiny objects, the rabbit, shiny objects. I mean, you've got to be pinpoint with your intention. And I'm loving how the Chinese year and what you're sharing, because it's not just, like I said, the general sort of stuff that I share, but this deeper stuff and these deeper questions that you're asking and giving to us, like it's quite amazing. Renee, it really is.
And you know, I was going to ask you actually, the wood element is actually related to Jupiter. So how is that related with 2023?
Well, Jupiter is moving into the sign of Taurus for the first time in 12 years, and he is staying in the sign of Taurus. So I will highly recommend that you listen or watch my interview with Antoinette, because she talks about this and she is luscious. Oh my goodness, I swoon over her. So you will love her interpretation of this. But ultimately what happens is Jupiter moves into a sign, and often in his retrograde, he will dip back into, he'll move through a sign, go into another sign, dip back into the past sign and come and forth. And so it's sort of what's been happening in this cycle. But in the true Taurian consistency, and Taurus is Earth, so it's very interesting that Wood and Jupiter are together, because Taurus is an earth sign, and it's the most embodied earth sign that there is, because it's fixed earth. It's literally Pachamama. So we're so lucky to have that support, considering this year of the rabbit doesn't, and the pillars don't have the earth like you shared. So Jupiter and Wood, very interesting. Jupiter moves into Taurus and stays in Taurus for a full year without dipping back into its previous sign in the retrograde. That is like mind-blowing. And I'm like, oh, in true Taurian consistency, darling, of course. I mean, I have a lot of planets in Taurus, so I'm just like frothing this. And Jupiter is expansion and growth. You know, you've mentioned around the growth, wisdom, philosophy, our beliefs. And in Taurus, you know, it's very fertile ground, again, with the seeds and the grass you were talking about. Like it's a lot of growth. It feels so aligned and juicy that Jupiter moves into Taurus in this wood year with no earth. And I'm loving that. That's amazing.
Interesting. And how it's related in a way is because the wood is related to the liver, and the liver is the largest organ in the body. So that's the correlation there with the wood. But again, you don't have wood in Western astrology. So
it's interesting, isn't it? I love it. But we have Jupiter. So, and Jupiter is our big, the biggest planet in our solar system. So, when we're working with Jupiter, and even in our own charts, when we look at him, it's like Stephen Forrest, a wonderful astrologer that I love, he says it's like where God has bestowed his gifts upon you is where Jupiter is. So it'd be very interesting correlating everything that you've shared around wood and how we can then even, plant that into our own astrology charts to go, well, where's Jupiter and what's going on there? That's where, again, all of the growth comes from. That's where we have to feed water into that as well, which is really interesting and funny too. Jupiter rules the sign of Sag, which is a fire sign, and also is the co-ruler or the modern day ruler, modern day ruler of Sag, traditional ruler of Pisces. And just because I love all these like random facts, but Jupiter is actually also full of helium. Like there's lots of helium on its actual on its planet. And when you look to Sagittarians, and I have my youngest daughter is a Sag with lots of planets in Sag, she's the jokester, she's the prankster, she wants to do all the jokes. And when I looked at when you actually astronomically understand the planets, just like the totem animals and the elements, again, we bring in the reality of these things to make these things tangible for us, not just like, oh, it's a planet out there. It's like, no, well, Jupiter's actually full of this. Venus is actually the hottest planet. Everyone thinks Mars is because it's the red planet, but Venus is full of sulfuric acid volcanoes. And, I'm absolutely like sweating up a storm here, glowing and sweating. And for anyone who's ever listened to me channel or talk or anything, I always talk about how hot I run hot constantly. And my whole chart is like 70% Venus. So it just makes sense that the heat is a big thing for me, and I lack fire in my chart. So, which is heat, so it's really fascinating that Jupiter is this expansive, funny bastard, we call him the Santa Claus of the zodiac, because he's the gregarious one. So
because in feng shui we do we look at the Grand Duke and where the Grand Duke comes in, and the Grand Duke is actually the shadow of Jupiter. And we have a lot of reverence towards the Grand Duke. It's the master, and you do not face the Grand Duke throughout each year. So
what is the shadow of Jupiter in the Grand Duke? Like, what would that be? Like, what is that? Those energies?
It's like the commander.
Okay.
And so you need to be very humble towards the Grand Duke and treat it with a lot of respect. You cannot make noise or bang things in a certain area. So for 2023, it's the due east. And so you do not face him. You can have him behind you because then he will support you and protect you, but you don't face him and you don't disturb the Grand Duke.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we need you in our houses every single year to tell us all the things about the Grand Duke and where he's going to be situated.
Yeah, I do this. I have a course that I do every year. Just a little mini course.
Okay. Oh, that's really good to know, because I haven't done the course. I only do the year overview thing. I think I'll be doing that one next year.
Yeah. So it's interesting because in feng shui, the Jupiter, because it is the largest planet, it is the chief, it's the commander.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah, it's just so incredible how all of this, even just the questions you've posed around, make these decisions, go retreat within, be silent, ask yourself what you want to become, who you want to be. I think the blurred vision stuff with the mist is really interesting, but I love when you talked about the amplification of the drop, that we can see clearly. And I think that that's what's so necessary in these times. Like, you know, this whole decade is the crumbling, the whole decade, and everyone's, oh, is next year going to be better? Is next year? I'm like, maybe like 2028 or something, like, you know, when we're really, you know, when we're sort of, you know, we're finishing up a numerology cycle. So we've got to get 7, 8 and 9 yet, where we've got planets moving into signs that we've never seen in our lives. And next year is only the beginning. You know, Saturn moves into Pisces next year, which is the first time in 30 years that he's been there. So again, you know, we got more water, you know, and I found it really interesting too that Jupiter and Neptune made their conjunction this year in Pisces, and we've had all the floods, you know, again, it's been interesting just because I'm going off just the basis of water, but knowing the woods there too is really interesting.
And you know, in Chinese astrology, 2025, we come in full into the fire element. So, and the fire element is all about hope and optimism. So yes, it may be there's still fear there. We still have the water sitting on top. There's still a surface level of fear. And then we need to go through our transition in 2024 into the age 9. But then in 2025, that's when, you know, we really get our hope and our optimism and happiness, like not back, not that it went anywhere, but the fire's there now.
And I'm pretty sure that in 2025, I've got it somewhere, that Saturn and Neptune, for the first time, Saturn 30 years, Neptune 165 years, move into Aries fire, the beginning of the zodiac. And that's very interesting. And then 2025 is a 9 year. So it's actually still a clearing out year. It's still a year of completion, which feels good too, because for me, when we're completing and clearing up karmic debris and things like that, it means that we're actually opening to welcome. So the 9 and the 1 year for me on a numerology level, I always find it's very, you know, connected. We're weaving them both together. And it seems like even though 2025, like you said, is that, you know, that real anchoring of that age of 9, when we're really, you know, when it's really coming in here, we're in it. It is giving the hope and optimism, because it will be a very big collective clear out as well karmically. It's like, okay, it's time to clear that out now, and, you know, get ready for that numerology 1, which is 2026. But yeah, I'm sure it's 2025, or it might be 2026, or maybe that's Uranus in Gemini. But my whole mind is just constantly ingress, you know, planets moving into other signs constantly. But I do know that it's interesting that it's the fire element that we move into with what you're sharing. And for the first time in 165 years, Neptune will move into Aries and finally be out of the drowning, of which I've been calling it the drowning. We've got all this water, you know, and even in the Chinese, so much water each year, you know. We definitely need you on every year to be sharing, like, well, what bloody element are we in now? We need to understand the elements. Like you said, it's nearly more important to understand the element and what's feeding into that, as opposed to just the general, the rabbit is timid and reserved.
No, it's all about the elements. You know, this Chinese 5 elements is used in feng shui, you know, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, like it's in everything. It explains everything. So it's all about the elements and how they work together and support each other or drain another. You're so right. Yes. So I wanted to also provide a few tips.
Great. Let's do that.
And because we're so heavy with the wood, we need an element that will bridge between the wood and the earth. So there's no earth, but wood likes to attack earth. So there'll be instability. Like earth is all about stability. There will be instability. So we need to ensure that we're grounding ourselves, that we're going back to our little collective of our families, of our groups, ensuring those groups are actually working with integrity and are authentic, because, you know, we can be swayed really easily. So we need to come back into a really safe place, but a place that also has vision. So also, because of the instability of the earth, ensuring that our homes and our boundaries are also really strong. So tending to our homes, creating safe spaces is really important. With the wood, obviously it's all about decision making, and the clearer we are, the clearer we can make our decisions. So detoxing, decluttering our spaces, ensuring as well with earth, because it's under attack really in 2023, it can create digestive problems. So it's ensuring that we're eating clean foods. I mean, that's obviously going to be a thing to say every year really, but more so it will help with our clarity and keeping us grounded. The fire element is that bridge as well. So ensuring that you're moving, because wood can become rigid and intolerant. Not so much the yin wood of the rabbit, but wood in general. You need to actually stretch and move your muscles. And that also allows us to be mentally flexible as well. So wood governs our muscles and our spine and neck and head. So it's really important to stretch ourselves, which will allow us to mentally and emotionally do that as well. And that's where the resilience comes in with any sort of pressure that we're under. But moving our body, not staying rigid, is really important. Cooking your foods. So make sure that you, because the earth element of our digestion is under a lot of stress, then ensuring that you're using the fire element to actually cook your foods, like not raw foods. That's really poor for your spleen chi. So cooking your foods, very nourishing, and it allows the chi to actually be absorbed by your body and doesn't put as much stress on the stomach as well.
Amazing tips. That was a lot of tips. Grounding, boundaries, finding safe and sacred spaces, using fire as the bridge to move things through the chi. I love the digestive stuff, talking about eating cleanly and cooking and warming foods and things like that to nourish. I mean, we could talk for a million more years, Renee. It was amazing to have you on. You have given so much great information that we can use and take with us next year and weave into everything else that's happening. And it's just so great to see how everything is just, it's just a divine orchestration of perfection at the end of the day. There's no right or wrong way to the top of the mountain. And it really, working with a lot of these different tools, and like you said, like TCM and all this sort of traditional stuff with the elements, it's so important and imperative for us to all, I think, start to uncover more that, we're not just a rooster, we're not just a rabbit.
Absolutely.
So really go there.
We've got another, like 3 other pillars that you haven't looked at. If you're just looking at that year pillar, you've got another 3 that the deeper you go into your 4 pillars, the more honed it is for your personal self.
Yeah. Well, I have just taken 2 full pages of notes. Yes, as I always do with you, because again, I just love the alignment with everything and just some of those great words that really do match up with what we're just about to go through numerologically and astrologically as well. So it's just so wonderful to have you bring your passion and magic to this panel, and we all get to sit in this, which is super exciting. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing, Renee.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It was my absolute pleasure, and it'll have to be a regular thing.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as me. I felt like a real little student, and we look forward to seeing more of Renee, which obviously you're going to see all of the things where you can follow and find her once I share everything. So enjoy, and thanks again, Renee.
Thank you.
Bye.